former President Thabo Mbeki, former President F.W. de Klerk, leaders and excellencies of various countries who have come to South Africa, Mrs. Graça Machel, Mama Winnie Mandela, the Mandela family, the leadership of the ruling party, the African National Congress, and the leadership of various other political parties, religious leaders, and a number of non-governmental organizations, and everyone else who is here. I welcome you in the name of our President Jacob Zuma and the Mandela family. My name is Cyril Ramaphosa. Baleka Mbete and I have been asked by President Jacob Zuma to be your program directors. We both trust that you will work with us to ensure that we have a dignified and fitting memorial service in honor of our father, Nelson Mandela. And we wish to applaud the people of South Africa for the dignified manner in which they have been honoring and remembering the memory of Nelson Mandela since he passed away. We applaud you and thank you for that. On behalf of the President, I welcome all of you who have traveled from all corners of the world. I also extend warm words of welcome to our friends from all over the world, and let us give Nelson Mandela's friends, as well as the friends of South Africa from all over the world, a round of South African warm welcome and say thank you for coming. I also welcome those in South Africa and those around the world who cannot come but who are watching the proceedings on television. We have more than 100 countries represented here today, easily representing billions of people around the world who are bidding farewell to Nelson Mandela. We say thank you for that. And I apologize for the rain. We were not able to stop the rain, but this is how Nelson Mandela would have wanted to be sent off. These are blessings, and in our African tradition, when it rains, when you are buried, it means that your gods are welcoming you and the gates of heaven are most probably open as well. Took under its care millions of South Africans who were oppressed under apartheid. We will reflect on the life of a man who took the pain of millions of South Africans. He took their humiliations and the dignity they were stripped of and made them his very own. And with the weight of burden on his shoulders, he worked to free us all. And in a way, black and white, to embark on a journey to reconcile with each other, to forgive our past transgressions, to bury hatred, embrace human rights, non-racialism, non-sexism, and begin the task and the arduous odyssey to become a nation of diverse cultures, diverse religions, and different races. A nation that speaks in many tongues, but that should finally have one voice that melts into a chorus of unity. He was our teacher and our mentor, and he never gave up on us for our failures, but acknowledged that despite the rage, the resentments and noise that sometimes engulfed us, we are all frail and vulnerable and can only succeed if we reach out to each other. This is the man that we have come to say farewell to, a man who has built our nation. In many ways, we are here today to tell Madiba that his long walk is over, that he can finally rest, that he can enjoy the view of our beautiful country, of South Africa, a view he discovered when he began walking the hills of his birthplace in Bezo. His long walk is over, but ours is only beginning. And with that, as we walk down memory lane, I would like us now to do what he would have wanted us to do. That is to open this memorial service with an interfaith opening prayer. I would like to call upon Chief Rabbi Warren Goldstein, Ashwin Trikamji, the Hindu faith, Mulan Bam of the Muslim faith, and Archbishop Tata,
and continue to touch many lives throughout the world even after his death 6 days ago. I'm overjoyed by the outpouring of love and admiration demonstrated by all of you here today. Madiba is looking down on us now, and there is no doubt, smiling as he watches his beloved countrymen and women unite to celebrate his life and legacy. Seldom does on a world and news passing has received incomparable force of acceptance and that is the way he inspired us all by entering the den of enemy and ultimately, together with the people of South Africa and the world, defeating oppression and subjugation, not by force, but with understanding and love. Although Madiba fought for the eradication of racial prejudice in South Africa under the leadership of the African National Congress, he did so with a goal to unite all colors and creeds beneath a banner of mutual respect and kindness. The realization of this ideal required Madiba and many fellow ANC comrades to sacrifice precious years to imprisonment in certain that undermine their health and well-being. Despite this, who appeared as a role model, worked to toll upon his release in 1990, describing his oppressors as men of integrity who had committed themselves to ushering in a new era for South Africa. Nelson Mandela was an inspiration to billions by epitomizing the values of sacrifice, wisdom, and patience. He created hope when there was none. He forced optimism and confidence out of distrust and sorrow. It is not possible to compare an individual of his stature to commonly applied models of leadership and sagacity. As a young man caught in the midst of apartheid, most fearsome and violent years, the ideals that he stood for were guiding light during uncertain times. Throughout the struggles that we experienced, I consistently revisited the sacrifice he was making and principles he represented. My path with Madiba first crossed in the early 50s at the Orlando Railway Police Station. A friend of mine, Simon Malaza, who knew him better, introduced me to him as a Mr. Mandela, quote, a very wise man or a future lawyer, unquote. At that stage, I did not know that our lives were intertwined and bound together by destiny. When I became active in the politics of the African National Congress in the early 50s, I got to know Madiba better. Madiba's greatness as a leader stems from his humility and an ingrained belief in the persuasion and respect for collective leadership. He believed in sharing insights and listening to and learning from others. When the doors to peaceful demonstrations were barred to the African National Congress and other political organizations, Madiba persuaded the NEC of the African National Congress to take up arms in defense of the rights of our people. Thus, Umkhonto weSizwe, the Rumeless Charm, the spear of the nation, MK, was formed. Because of the previous exploit we carried out while Madiba was operating underground, I became one of his first recruits into the MK. I, together with 5 others, was the first 6 MK recruits from 1961 to the end of 1962 to be sent out to the People's Republic of China for military training. I was together with Raymond Mhlaba, Wilton Boy, Abel Mtembu, who later became a state witness against Steve Naidu, and Joe Gavi. Upon my return from China, I became a member of the National High Command, an organization that was a structure of the agency that was carrying on and supervising the activities of Umkhonto weSizwe here in the country. After the 11th of June 1963 Livonia trial arrest, together with Madiba, we were charged during the treason trial by the National Party government for attempting to overthrow the apartheid government through violent means. We were eventually found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment on Robben Island. As a prisoner 467, 64, I occupied the cell next to that of Madiba, who was prisoner 466, 64. In prison, Madiba exuded leadership, but based on collective thinking. This had a significant impact on my own development as a man, a South African citizen, and an ANC member. Without Madiba's ongoing guidance, acceptance, and leadership, I would not have become the individual that I am today. For that, I cannot thank him enough. I'm certain not the individual that has been fortunate enough to benefit from the lofty example that Nelson Mandela set. Millions of youthful South Africans and indeed members of the international community have strived to emulate the great man stood for. I'm told my time is up, but it should be our collective wisdom, conviction, and resolve as the community of nations to uphold the values of Nelson Mandela. God bless Mandela. God bless your soul. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you very much.
Excellencies of the diplomatic corps, eminent persons, ladies and gentlemen, on occasions such as this, charged with raw emotions, grief, sorrow, and anguish, allow me to respectfully end, and in far-flung region of the world, this universal show of unity is a true reflection of all that Madiba stood for: peace, justice, unity of all mankind. Let us pledge to keep Madiba's dream alive in the way in which we honor the humanity in each other, in the way in which we reach out to the humanity in each other, and in the way in which we raise up the impoverished, the forgotten, and the disabled. In this regard, we, the Mandela family, enter into a solemn covenant with you, the people of our country, Africa, citizens of the world, that we will recommit ourselves to the values and the ideas Madiba stood for. In this spirit of Ubuntu, we hope that you will continue to stand by us, encourage us, guide us, because we are because of you.
Steadfast throughout their lives. As one of the young militants of the ANC Youth League in 1944, he said he understood that South Africa's struggles were closely linked to struggles of the oppressed people across Africa and indeed the world. And he said to the young youth leaguers in 1951 at their Congress, history is on the side of the oppressed. The growing Pan-African movement, the increasing number of independent African countries, and the unflinching support and solidarity of the struggles of those still under the yoke of oppression was a source of inspiration to him and his peers. It was this solidarity that Madiba counted on when he was sent by the ANC in 1962 to mobilize support for South Africa's turn to armed struggle. His campaign to mobilize support took him across the continent to Ethiopia, Egypt, Algeria, Tunisia, Guinea, Morocco, Mali, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Senegal, and many others. Wherever he went on our continent, doors were opened. He got military training and he got support for the struggle. When the apartheid regime banned our organization, arrested our leaders, our continent became home to freedom fighters from across Southern Africa. And of course, a number of those countries became targets from the regime: Botswana, Lesotho, Mozambique, Swaziland, Angola, Zimbabwe, and many others. Thus, when Madiba took his seat as the first democratic and non-racial president of South Africa at the OAU Summit of Heads of State, we are here today not to thank dear brothers and sisters, because such thanks would be misplaced amongst fellow combatants. We are here to salute and congratulate you for the most magnificent and historical victory over an inhuman system whose very name was tyranny and injustice. When the history of our struggle is written, it will tell a glorious tale of African solidarity, of African adherence to principle. It will tell a story of sacrifice from the peoples of our continent, made to ensure that the intolerant insult of human dignity, the apartheid crime against humanity, became a thing of the past. Africa shed her blood and surrendered the lives of her children so that all her children could be free. She gave of her limited wealth and resources so that all of Africa should be liberated. During his presidency, Tata Mandela championed peace and security on the continent and passionately campaigned for Africa's development and renaissance. We express our sincere condolences to Mark Russia, Mamu Winnie, the children, grandchildren.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. To Graça Machel and the Mandela family, to President Zuma and members of the government, to heads of state and government, past and present, distinguished guests, it is a singular honor to be with you today, to celebrate a life like no other. To the people of South Africa,
people of every race and every walk of life, the world thanks you for sharing Nelson Mandela with us. His struggle was your struggle. His triumph was your triumph. Your dignity and your hope found expression in his life, and your freedom, your democracy, is his cherished legacy. It is hard to eulogize any man, to capture in words not just the facts and the dates that make a life, but the essential truth of a person, their private joys and sorrows, the quiet moments and unique qualities that illuminate someone's soul. How much harder to do so for a giant of history who moved a nation toward justice and in the process moved billions around the world. Born during World War I, far from the corridors of power, a boy raised herding cattle and tutored by the elders of his Thembu tribe, Madiba would emerge as the last great liberator of the 20th century. Like Gandhi, he would lead a resistance movement, a movement that at its start had little prospect for success. Like Dr. King, he would give potent voice to the claims of the oppressed and the moral necessity of racial justice. He would endure a brutal imprisonment that began in the time of Kennedy and Khrushchev and reached the final days of the Cold War. Emerging from prison without the force of arms, he would, like Abraham Lincoln, hold his country together when it threatened to break apart. And like America's founding fathers, he would erect a constitutional order to preserve freedom for future generations, a commitment to democracy and rule of law, ratified not only by his election, but by his willingness to step down from power after only one term. Given the sweep of his life, the scope of his accomplishments, the adoration that he so rightly earned, it's tempting, I think, to remember Nelson Mandela as an icon, smiling and serene, detached from the tawdry affairs of lesser men. But Madiba himself strongly resisted such a lifeless portrait. Instead, Madiba insisted on sharing with us his doubts and his fears, his miscalculations, along with his victories. I am not a saint, he said, unless you think of a saint as a sinner who keeps on trying. And it was precisely because he could admit to imperfection, because he could be so full of good humor, even mischief, despite the heavy burdens that he carried, that we loved him so. He was not a bust made of marble. He was a man of flesh and blood, a son and a husband, a father and a friend. And that's why we learn so much from him, and that's why we can learn from him still. For nothing he achieved was inevitable. In the arc of his life, we see a man who earned his place in history through struggle and shrewdness and persistence and faith. He tells us what is possible, not just in the pages of history books, but in our own lives as well. Mandela showed us the power of action, of taking risks on behalf of our ideals. Perhaps Mandela was right that he inherited a proud rebelliousness, a stubborn sense of fairness from his father. And we know he shared with millions of black and colored South Africans the anger born of 1,000 slights, 1,000 indignities, 1,000 unremembered moments, a desire to fight the system that imprisoned my people, he said. But like other early giants of the ANC, the Sisulus and the Tambos, Madiba disciplined his anger and channeled his desire to fight into organization and platforms and strategies for action so men and women could stand up for their God-given dignity. Moreover, he accepted the consequences of his actions, knowing that standing up to powerful interests and injustice carries a price. I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I've cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve, but if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. Mandela taught us the power of action, but he also taught us the power of ideas, the importance of reason and arguments, the need to study not only those who you agree with, but also those who you don't agree with. He understood that ideas cannot be contained by prison walls or extinguished by a sniper's bullet. He turned his trial into an indictment of apartheid because of his eloquence and his passion, but also because of his training as an advocate. He used decades of prison to sharpen his arguments, but also to spread his thirst for knowledge to others in the movement. And he learned the language and the customs of his oppressors so that one day he might better convey to them how their own freedom depends upon his. Mandela demonstrated that action and ideas are not enough. No matter how right, they must also be chiseled in the law and institutions. He was practical, testing his beliefs against the hard surface of circumstance and history. On core principles, he was unyielding, which is why he could rebuff offers of unconditional release, reminding the apartheid regime that prisoners cannot enter into contracts. But as he showed in painstaking negotiations to transfer power and draft new laws, he was not afraid to compromise for the sake of a larger goal. And because he was not only a leader of a movement, but a skillful politician, the Constitution that emerged was worthy of this multiracial democracy, true to his vision of laws that protect minority as well as majority rights and the precious freedoms of every South African. And finally, Mandela understood the ties that bind the human spirit. There's a word in South Africa, Ubuntu. A word that captures Mandela's greatest gift. His recognition that we are all bound together in ways that are invisible to the eye. That there's a oneness to humanity. That we achieve ourselves by sharing ourselves with others and caring for those around us. We can never know how much of this sense was innate in him or how much was shaped in a dark and solitary cell. But we remember the gestures, large and small, introducing his jailers as honored guests at his inauguration, taking a pitch in a Springbok uniform, turning his family's heartbreak into a call to confront HIV/AIDS that revealed the depths of his empathy and his understanding. He not only embodied Ubuntu, he taught millions to find that truth within themselves. It took a man like Madiba to free not just the prisoner, but the jailer as well. To show that you must trust others so that they may trust you. To teach that reconciliation is not a matter of ignoring a cruel past, but a means of confronting it with inclusion and generosity and truth. He changed laws, but he also changed hearts. For the people of South Africa, for those he inspired around the globe, Madiba's passing is rightly a time of mourning and a time to celebrate a heroic life. But I believe it should also prompt in each of us a time for self-reflection. With honesty, regardless of our station or our circumstance, we must ask, how well have I applied his lessons in my own life? It's a question I ask myself as a man and as a president. We know that, like South Africa, the United States had to overcome centuries of racial subjugation. As was true here, it took sacrifice, the sacrifices of countless people, known and unknown, to see the dawn of a new day. Michelle and I are beneficiaries of that struggle. But in America and in South Africa and in countries all around the globe, we cannot allow our progress to cloud the fact that our work is not yet done. The struggles that follow the victory of formal equality or universal franchise may not be as filled with drama and moral clarity as those that came before, but they are no less important. For around the world today, we still see children suffering from hunger and disease. We still see rundown schools. We still see young people without prospects for the future. Around the world today, men and women are still imprisoned for their political beliefs and are still persecuted for what they look like and how they worship and who they love. That is happening today. And so we too must act on behalf of justice. We too must act on behalf of peace. There are too many people who happily embrace Madiba's legacy of racial reconciliation, but passionately resist even modest reforms that would challenge chronic poverty and growing inequality. There are too many leaders who claim solidarity with Madiba's struggle for freedom, but do not tolerate dissent from their own people. And there are too many of us on the sidelines, comfortable in complacency or cynicism, when our voices must be heard. The questions we face today, how to promote equality and justice, how to uphold freedom and human rights, how to end conflict and sectarian war, these things do not have easy answers. But there were no easy answers in front of that child born in World War I. Nelson Mandela reminds us that it always seems impossible until it is done. South Africa shows that it's true. South Africa shows we can change, that we can choose a world defined not by our differences, but by our common hopes. We can choose a world defined not by conflict, but by peace and justice and opportunity. We will never see the likes of Nelson Mandela again. But let me say to the young people of Africa and the young people around the world, you too can make his life work your own. Over 30 years ago, while still a student, I learned of Nelson Mandela and the struggles taking place in this beautiful land. And it stirred something in me. It woke me up to my responsibilities, to others and to myself, and it set me on an improbable journey that finds me here today. And while I will always fall short of Madiba's example, he makes me want to be a better man. He speaks to what's best inside us. After this great liberator is laid to rest, and when we've returned to our cities and villages and rejoined our daily routines, let us search for his strength. Let us search for his largeness of spirit somewhere inside of ourselves. And when the night grows dark, when injustice weighs heavy on our hearts, when our best laid plans seem beyond our reach, let us think of Madiba and the words that brought him comfort within the four walls of his cell. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged the punishment, the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. What a magnificent soul it was. We will miss him deeply. May God bless the memory of Nelson Mandela. May God bless the people of South Africa.
Presidente Jacob, familiares de Nelson Mandela, altos dignatarios, hermano pueblo de Sudáfrica.
President Jacob Zuma, relatives of Nelson Mandela, distinguished dignitaries, fraternal people of South Africa.
Rendimos emocionado tributo a Nelson Mandela, a quien se reconoce como símbolo supremo de dignidad y de consagración inclaudicable a la lucha revolucionaria por la libertad y la justicia, como un profeta de la unidad, la reconciliación y la paz.
Let us pay emotional tribute to Nelson Mandela, the ultimate symbol of dignity and unwavering dedication to the revolutionary struggle for freedom and justice, a prophet of unity, peace and reconciliation.
Junto a sus compañeros de lucha, dirigió a su pueblo en la batalla contra la apartheid para abrir el camino hacia una nueva Sudáfrica no racial y unida en la búsqueda de la felicidad, la igualdad y el bienestar de todos sus hijos, para superar las secuelas del colonialismo, la esclavitud y la segregación racial.
I can hold it, okay. Sorry. Alongside his comrades in the struggle, Mandela has led his people in the battle against apartheid to open the way to a new South Africa, a non-racial and a united South Africa in its quest for happiness, equality, and the well-being of all of its children. A nation bent on overcoming the consequences of colonialism, slavery, and racial segregation.
Ejemplo de integridad y perseverancia, encabezó luego el esfuerzo dirigido a la eliminación de la pobreza, la reducción de la desigualdad y la creación de oportunidades para todos.
Setting an example of integrity and perseverance, Mandela later headed the efforts to eradicate poverty, reduce inequality, and create opportunities for all.
Mandela es un ejemplo insuperable para América Latina y el Caribe, que avanzan hacia la unidad e integración en beneficio de sus pueblos, respetuosos de su diversidad, con la convicción de que el diálogo y la cooperación son el camino para la solución de las diferencias y la convivencia civilizada de quienes piensan distinto.
Mandela has set out an insurmountable example to Latin America and the Caribbean, which are currently moving towards unity and integration for the benefit of their peoples, on the basis of respect for diversity, and convinced that it is only through dialogue and cooperation that discrepancies can be resolved in a civilized relationship established between those who think differently.
La humanidad no podrá responder a los colosales desafíos que amenazan su propia existencia si no lo hace mediante una nueva concertación de esfuerzos entre todas las naciones, como la vida de Mandela preconiza.
As Mandela's life teaches us, only the concerted efforts of all nations will empower humanity to respond to the enormous challenges that today threaten its very existence.
Cuba, que lleva en sus venas sangre africana, surgió en la lucha por la independencia y por la abolición de la esclavitud, y posteriormente ha tenido el privilegio de combatir y construir junto a las naciones africanas.
Cuba, a country born in the struggle for independence and for the abolition of slavery, and whose children have African blood in their veins, has had the privilege of fighting and building alongside the African nations.
Jamás olvidaremos el emocionado homenaje de Mandela a nuestra lucha común cuando nos visitó el 26 de julio de 1991 y dijo: el pueblo cubano ocupa un lugar especial en el corazón de los pueblos de África.
We shall never forget Mandela's moving homage to our common struggle when, on the occasion of his visit to our country on July 26, 1991, he said, and I quote, "The Cuban people have a special place in the hearts of the peoples of Africa."
Recuerdo su entrañable amistad con Fidel Castro, símbolo de la hermandad entre africanos y cubanos, quien expresó: Nelson Mandela no pasará a la historia por los 27 años consecutivos que vivió allí encarcelado, sin ceder jamás en sus ideas. Pasará porque fue capaz de arrancar de su alma todo el veneno que pudo caer crear tan injusto castigo. Por la generosidad y la sabiduría con que en la hora de la victoria ya incontenible supo dirigir tan brillantemente su abnegado y heroico pueblo, conociendo que la nueva Sudáfrica no podría jamás construirse sobre cimientos de odio y de venganza.
I remember at this moment his bond of affection with Fidel Castro, a symbol of the fraternal relations between Africans and Cubans. Fidel has said, and I quote, "Nelson Mandela will not go down in history for the 27 consecutive years he spent incarcerated without ever renouncing his ideas. He will go down in history because he was capable of cleaning up his soul from the poison that such an unfair punishment could have planted there, and for his generosity and wisdom, which at the time of victory allowed him to lead with great talent his selfless and heroic people, knowing that the new South Africa could not be built on hatred and vengeance."
Honor y gloria eternas a Nelson Mandela y al heroico pueblo de Sudáfrica.
Honor and glory forever to the great comrade Nelson Mandela and to the heroic people of South Africa.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Castro. We thank you for all the support and the help that we continued to get from the people of Cuba during our years of struggle, and our countries continue to be joined at the hip in the area of development in a number of ways, in health and many other areas. We continue to recognize heads of government.
Wapagamu mshalazi makabade, wapagamu Jacob Zuma matota, esa ukashanu matiba, esa utihalala Mandela, halala. Satakomi zizo za sabati, sijatili zizo, sijatili ngoteli, Simkashalo Mandela takuna mtlanje. This is the stem of our society, the filament of freedom, the killings of consciousness, the corral of people's cause, the answer of amicable solutions, the pollen of prosperity, the pistil of peace. Yapagama kumshalazi, ikunza mtwaitwaka nuketu, kumshalazi.
Sohlangana nge-Freedom Day. Wasumandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi
Grasa Machel, Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela, and the entire Mandela family, and Nabatem Bapele, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellencies, former Heads of State and Government, Deputy Presidents and representatives of governments, heads of international organizations in all regions of the world, Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, traditional leaders, religious leaders, the leadership of the ANC and the alliance partners, leaders of fraternal political organizations in Africa and abroad, representatives of political parties, activists of the former anti-apartheid movement, the diplomatic corps, eminent persons, friends of South Africa from all over the world, fellow South Africans, Sanbonani, good day. Molweni, Dumelang, Lekai. South Africans sing a popular freedom song about former President Nelson Mandela. He never lost his fighting spirit. For 27 years, the South African people spoke about him in harsh tones out of fear. In fact, if the apartheid government had its way, they would have been burned even from thinking about Madiba. But the powerful name of Nelson Mandela lived on. He continued to inspire our people every single day from inside prison walls. He demonstrated unique leadership in spite and starting negotiations with the enemy whilst in prison. He also negotiated for the release of his fellow political prisoners first, before his own release. His release from Victor Verster prison on the 11th of February 1990 was one of the most remarkable and moving moments in the world history. The world came to a standstill, watching this tall, imposing figure walking out into a world he had left behind 27 years before. The enormous emotions and feelings we felt on that day are difficult to express in human language. A downtrodden people who had been dehumanized and made to feel like pariahs in the land of their birth suddenly saw signs that freedom would be attained in their lifetime. South Africa needed a leader like Madiba to help us through a difficult transition from apartheid to a free democratic society. In the bumpy road to our historic first free and fair elections, there are many times that he brought our nation back from the brink of catastrophe. The massacre at Boipatong
in 1992 and the killing of the popular leader of our people, Chris Hani, in 1993 are some of the occasions when our country faltered in its long walk to freedom, when we stared into the heart of darkness. It is at this time that Madiba restored a sense of calm and the purpose and brought us back on the road to freedom. South Africa's first democratic elections were largely peaceful because of his leadership that he displayed. Indeed, there is no one like Madiba. He was one of a kind. Today, on International Human Rights Day, we celebrate Madiba, the man of peace. Today is the 20th anniversary of his being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize on the 10th of December 1993. This freedom fighter had always stated that the ANC had resorted to arms because the intransigence of the apartheid regime, which responded with violence, bannings, and detentions to simple demands for equal citizenship, human rights, and justice, to him, for South Africa to attain peace, the armed struggle was inevitable. But it was a means to an end, but not an end in itself. Madiba's love for peace was also evident in the work he did in the continent. People of Burundi enjoy peace and democracy today because of the seeds of peace planted by Madiba. Following the historic national elections on the 27th April 1994, an unprecedented number of heads of state and government and eminent persons from around the world descended upon our shores for Madiba's inauguration as the first president of a free and democratic South Africa. Today, the whole world is standing still again to pay tribute to this greatest son of South Africa and Africa. Fellow mourners, there is no one like Madiba. He was one of a kind. The world speaks fondly of Madiba's promotion of unity, reconciliation, and non-racialism during his presidency. He had declared as follows during the trial in 1964, and I quote, "The ANC has spent half a century fighting leli qhawe libekile induku ebandla. Sikhumbula namhlanjena leli volunteer elikhulu lika Khongolose. Sikhumbula umkhuzi uqala wamabutho omkhonto wesizwe. Sikhumbula iqhawe elazinikezela ladela ukufa emba ukuze likhulu labantu bakubo. Sikhumbula iqhawe lakithi, iqhawe laseningizimu Afrika elalo labantu bakithi ukuthi baphile kangcono, babe ngabantu abakhululekileyo. Sikhumbula iqhawe lakithi elabayidela kufa, ladela ukufa lifela thina abantu abamnyama. Compatriots and friends, while saying Madiba was one of a kind, we also remember that he believed in collective leadership and that he never wanted to be viewed as a messiah or a saint. He emphasized that all his achievements were derived from working with the ANC collective, from whom, in his own words, were men and women who were more capable than he was. Thus, the South Africa that you see today is a reflection of a Madiba and many others like him who sacrificed their lives for a free nation. We thus remain truly grateful to his peers, Walter Sisulu, Oliver Reginald Tambo, Govan Mbeki, Raymond Mhlaba, Dorothy Nyembe, Florence Muposho, and countless others who left indelible marks in the history of our struggle. Compatriots and friends, today Madiba is no more. He leaves behind a nation that loves him dearly. He leaves a continent that is truly proud to call him an African. He leaves the people of the world who embraced him as their own beloved icon. Most importantly, he leaves behind a deeply entrenched legacy of freedom, human rights, and democracy in our country. In his honor, we commit ourselves to continue building a nation based on the democratic values of human dignity, equality, and freedom. United in our diversity, we will continue working to build a nation free of poverty, hunger, homelessness, and inequality. As the African continent, led by the African Union, we will continue working to fulfill his desire for a better Africa and a more just, peaceful, and equitable world. Tomorrow, our people will accompany Madiba on his last journey to the seat of government, the Union Buildings in Pretoria, where his body will lie in state for 3 days. I have the honor today to announce that the Union Buildings Amphitheater, where Madiba was inaugurated as president in 1994, and where his body will lie in state, will, with effect from today, be called the Nelson Mandela Amphitheater. This is a fitting tribute to a man who transformed the Union buildings from a symbol of racism and repression to one of peace, unity, democracy, and progress. Compatriots, comrades, and friends, we extend yet again our deepest condolences to Mama Graça Machel, Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela, the children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, and the entire extended family. Nakubathembu bonke odlomo oMadiba. Our father Madiba has run a good race. He declared in his own words in 1994, he said, and I quote, "Death is something inevitable. When a man has done what he considers to be his duty to his people and his country, he can rest in peace. I believe I've made that effort, and that is therefore why I will sleep for eternity," unquote. Lala ngoxolo Madiba, qhawe lamaqhawe. Robala ka khotso, sinatla sa dinatla, sikwankwetla sa Afrika eburwa. Rest in peace, our father and our hero. Thank you very much.
Hai kopane South Africa, hai kopane.
Call upon Archbishop Desmond Tutu to close the ceremony for us. Arch.
I stand here as an old man, and I want to remind you that we got to be at this point because we were disciplined. So I am not going to give you a blessing until all of you stand. Paramani. And Niti Boga. I want to hear a pin dropped. Hey, hey, Nina. Hey, Bobby. Hey. Nizaye sokweni. Now I want to show the world which has come out here to celebrate the life of an extraordinary icon. We want to say thank you to that world, but you must show that world that we are disciplined. And so I want to hear a pin drop. Hey, hey. God and Ons vra dat U ons land geweldig seën. U het ons 'n wonderlike gawe gegee in hierdie ikoon van versoening. Thixo, siyakubulela ngentsikelelo osenzele zona namathamsanqa. We thank you, God, and we promise you, God, hey, we promise God, you must say yes. Yes. I and never man. Yes. We promise God that we are going to follow the example of Nelson Mandela. Alright, ngiyanisibelela ke. Thulani. Uxolo lukaThixo olugqitha kuwo konke ukuqonda. Malugcine inhliziyo nengqondo zenu ekumazini nasekumthandeni uThixo nonyana wakhe inkosi yethu Yesu Kristu. Ithi insikelelo kaThixo uSomandla, uYise, uNyana noMoya oyiNgcwele unisikelele uhlale unani konje nangonaphakade. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. Hallelujah. Okay.